For some reason, this video of mine became the most popular on my channel. One thing I have noticed in this video is that commenters seem to confirm that the meme about Malaysia is relatively accurate. So yeah, I think I should also break dance to explain why Malaysia exists. Just kidding. Alright, let's start this video. Last year, I made a video about why Singapore exists, but this time, we will look into the larger country north of Singapore, Malaysia. Famously known for the Petronas Towers, Batu Caves, and this cartoon, Malaysia is certainly not an obscure country. However, some people, even Malaysians, question their existence or even their own identity. In this video, we will be talking about how Malaysia became the sovereign country that we know today, and why Malaysia really exists. Before we explain Malaysian existence, we will explain what Malaysia is first. Basically, it's a country located in Southeast Asia, also known as the Balkans of Asia. Malaysia directly borders Thailand, Brunei, and Indonesia, while it also neighbors Singapore and the Philippines. There are many notable cities, such as Kuala Lumpur and Georgetown in Penang, and peninsular Malaysia seems more recognized than the rest of Malaysia. Most Malaysians are ethnic Malays, while a sizable minority are Chinese and Indians. Malaysia is a predominantly Muslim country with some Buddhists and Christians, and has a growing economy. Now let's unpack the brief history of this undiscovered Atlantis of Southeast Asia. For a long time, the land known as Malaysia had significantly been influenced by India from the west and China from the north. Indian influence was significant, bringing Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sanskrit to the area. However, the ancestors of today's Malays arrived as early as 10,000 years ago. Numerous empires and states have controlled Malaysia during its history, such as the trade-based Srivijaya Empire and the Sultanate of Malacca. By the early 1400s, the port of Malacca was founded by Parameswara. By this point, Islamic influence increased as traders, mostly Arabs, brought Islam and many natives started the conversion. Malacca became a central strategic area and a vital trading hub since it controlled the choke point between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. And of course, other powers, mainly European powers, would very much want to have the privilege of controlling trading choke points. The first of these powers was the Portuguese, who managed to capture Malacca. Eventually, the Dutch, with the help of some locals, managed to push the Portuguese out of Malacca. Another European power, the people who would claim Mars as their own, the British, certainly had an interest in the region. Their influence increased when they started to build colonies and trading posts on the Malay Peninsula, while starting to encroach more on the local states, such as the Johor Sultanate, which was at this point the most powerful Malay state in the region after Malacca's demise. The 1824 Anglo-Dutch Treaty effectively carved up what would become today's Malaysia to British influence, and today's Indonesia would be under Dutch influence. As Britain became more dominant in Malaysia, immigration mainly increased from China and India, and Kuala Lumpur was established as a major trading hub. British-ruled Malaysia was in no way united though. In Malaya, there were federated and unfederated states, as well as the Straits settlements, which included Singapore and Malacca. British-ruled Borneo was also ruled separately, with North Borneo, Brunei, and Sarawak being separate protectorates. During World War II, the Japanese captured the British possessions in the Malay archipelago. Nationalism rose and ethnic tensions escalated between the different ethnic groups of Malays, Chinese, and more. By 1945, the British had re-established their control, and you think everything would return to normal? Haha, no. Independence movements skyrocketed as ethnic tensions did. The British proclaimed the Malayan Union in Malaya in 1946, but ethnic Malays disapproved, and instead, it became the Federation of Malaya 2 years later. However, due to the brewing Cold War, communist guerrillas, many of whom are Chinese, waged an insurgency from 1948 until 1960 before being suppressed by the authorities. It was known as the Malayan Emergency. The emergence of Tunku Abdul Rahman became an essential point for Malaysian independence. By 1957, the Federation of Malaya was given independence with Rahman as its first prime minister, and by 1961, he suggested the merger of Malaya, Singapore, Sabah, Sarawak, and Brunei to form Malaysia, which was realized in 1963 except for Brunei. However, there were challenges to Malaysian existence and unity. The first is internal political issues, where such disagreements led Singapore to be kicked out of Malaysia and become a separate independent country in 1965. The second is the threat of communism. Many states that joined Malaysia did so due to fear of communism, where communists again waged guerrilla warfare starting in 1968 with the backing of China and the USSR. They were only pacified by the end of the 1980s. This communist threat, though, was a threat to the existing Malaysian government as well as the Western powers that didn't want another Vietnam in Southeast Asia. And the last one is the most significant, which comes from Malaysia's neighbors, specifically Indonesia and the Philippines to a lesser extent. The Indonesia-Malaysia confrontation, known as confrontasi, happened when Indonesia under Sukarno tried to stop Malaysia from forming. Indonesia saw the formation of Malaysia as a British imperialist plot, and the Philippines laid claims to parts of Sabah. Initially, a Greater Malayan Confederation, known as Mafilindo, was proposed that would unite Malaysia, the Philippines, and Indonesia into a single confederation. However, after Malaya aimed for a union between the former British colonies, it was abruptly cancelled and Indonesia resorted to force. The confrontasi characterized a period of hostility, brinkmanship, and several military actions until Sukarno's rule collapsed and the next ruler of Indonesia, Suharto, realized that they could not stop Malaysia from happening. Eventually, Indonesia recognized Malaysian independence and Malaysia was able to maintain its territorial integrity. Malaysia would become an independent country, with its economy growing substantially. Today, it features major economic hubs and majestic skyscrapers, and is considered an upper-income economy. Malaysia exists as Indonesia failed to stop it from happening when they tried to do so, and the Anglo-Dutch Treaty effectively created lines that would separate today's Malaysia and Indonesia. This is despite Malaysia and Indonesia having similar cultures, languages, and religious and ethnic demographics. They are basically brothers separated by different parents. Indonesia itself is a highly diverse country. Malaysia has had several states in the older times where they have ruled mostly much of today's Malaysia, such as Malacca and Johor Sultanate. The circumstances during Malaysian history, independence, and union kind of gave an impression on why Malaysian existence and identity is a more challenging thing to explain, especially since Malaysia is a diverse country and that the several states before the union had been administered separately. But the circumstances were in favor of the Malaysian Union and having a Malaysian identity. So Malaysia exists today and will continue to become an independent country in Southeast Asia. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe for more country neighbors. Oh, and the Philippines also considered renaming itself to Malaysia in the 60s, but of course, Malaysia got it first.